Hello YouTube friends. It's good to have you back with me. I'm following up on the previous video. The Seahorse aquarium is just about ready. It is transitioning and we are in the next phase of making sure that the water is ready and safe for seahorse arrival. So I followed up on something that I said I was going to do last time. Here is the hang on the back filter, and I took some mysis shrimp, put them in a little sack. Wow, they've really disintegrated. This was almost full and quite bulky, but I'll show you why I did that and the importance of it, but it looks like it's disintegrating nicely. I expected it to do that, but not that quickly, so it's really doing a great job. So I did that to jumpstart the nitrogen cycle so that when I do add the seahorses, the tank will already have a safe level of components and be able to buffer newly added bioloads, which means being able to add the seahorses without the water turning to dangerous levels. Couple things I want to point out since I did that. The protein skimmer has been skimming like crazy. I'm going to focus on there for just a moment. You can see from the side here the little bubbles coming up. Well, within the first 2 or 3 days afterwards, these bubbles were really accumulating and overflowing the top because there was so much invisible waste in the water as a result of the breakdown of that shrimp. And because the waste was so heavy, oh, there you can see some bubbling there. I'll focus on there for just a moment more. The waste was so heavy that I had to put the hose in a regular bucket instead of just a small container underneath the tank because so much of it was coming out. So the wastewater, that is. This has been running for 3 or 4 days now, and when I move down to the end of the hose here, you can see I have a bucket here. It's about 1/3 of the way full. I have not emptied it at all, but all of this has collected since adding the shrimp. And apparently the cycle is starting to level off a little bit because, or at least it's moving to the next phase, because the skimming is way down compared to what it was. It was literally overflowing like a little waterfall of bubbles before. Some other things that I want to point out in this short video today. I mentioned this ammonia alert, and you can see it's telling me that my ammonia levels, which is that first stage of developing poison in a nitrogen cycle in a saltwater aquarium, a newly established one, or when a bioload is too high. The normal color should be this yellowish color here, which means everything is safe. Well, you can see clearly the color has changed and it's moved into this greenish color now. I fully expect that the color change may go up to a blue or a dark blue before I start to see levels come back down. Now, I'm not going to rely exclusively on this ammonia alert to let me know when the water is safe to start adding seahorses. Like I said, this is just a helpful indicator to help you catch something that you might not have caught otherwise, perhaps in between your water changes or your regular testing schedule when you weren't expecting having a spike in your ammonia level for whatever reason. It's a warning to get you to check what your levels are and then do something about it before the toxic levels become dangerous for your animals, your fish, your seahorses, whatever creatures you're putting in your salt water. And of course there are different ways of handling that, but this is one reason why I have a very heavy protein skimmer, well overrated on this tank, because I know that I'm going to be putting in seahorses that are actually a little bit bigger than are recommended for this size tank. So when it gets to the point that it's telling me that we're at safe levels again, what I'll do is I'll test the water, and I'll demonstrate that for you so that we can make sure that the water really is safe. Meanwhile, all of the nitrifying bacteria is building up. So in that sponge intake that I have towards the back of the tank there, and then I also have a sponge intake on the power head that's pulling into the protein skimmer. And then I mentioned in the hang on the back filter, there's a spongy layer here that's going to be building up bacterial layers that help contribute to a stable water cycle and in a saltwater aquarium. And then I've added a little bag in a nylon, just plain old pantyhose nylon, of biocubes, they're called. And that is increasing the ability for the number of colonies to generate that will help control the water toxicity, because that nitrifying bacteria will contribute to keeping the water in check. All right, I'm just trying to get the lid back on here, so be patient with me. And one other thing I want to point out before I end the video today, I know it's a really short one, but this is really just to check in to see how things are going. I'm pointing out that I do have a predominantly visible thermometer, which came with one of the aquariums that I acquired somehow. So I didn't pay for this. It's another example of recycling. Let me see if I can get this to where you can see where the red is. You'll notice that there are some green markings on the left and right side of the thermometer, and then there's the red coloring telling you the actual temperature. The green area is the recommended temperature range. I wanted to point that out because seahorses are tropical fish, and you do want to make sure that the aquarium stays in the tropical temperature range, which is at least 72 degrees Fahrenheit or above. I do not have a heater on this aquarium, and that was an intentional decision for a couple of different reasons. One, I did not want to take up more space in the tank, but more importantly, the location of this aquarium is in a good place where the water temperature is going to stay stable. I've been looking at that thermometer for the past couple of days now, and it's pretty much stayed the same temperature, even though the outside temperatures are changing. We're starting to dip into our colder season here for this part of the country. Even so, because of the location of the aquarium, it's not next to a window, but yet is close enough where it can get sunlight, which is good for the seahorses, especially their fry. It is not next to any kind of heating or cooling vent. So the temperature against this inside wall of the house here is going to be very, very stable. But it's easy enough for me to see if there are fluctuations. And if there are, I will put a heater in there. But anytime you use a heater, you're always taking a risk. I've worked with heaters for a long time in aquariums, and sometimes you absolutely have to have them. But historically, if something's going to go wrong in an aquarium, that's the most likely thing. And there are stories of people whose heaters just stayed elevated. They remained stuck on high levels and ended up killing their fish, or at least putting their fish through stress because water temperature levels reached way too high levels. Here, I'm removing that danger. Like I said, this tank is going to stay pretty stable, but if I feel I need a heater in this tank, I'll use one. And probably now a lot of the heaters that are made are a little bit more reliable. I don't know that I have one that's really new. Probably my newest one is a couple years old. Like I said, I'm recycling aquarium equipment to keep the cost down, just because it's fiscally efficient to do that. And people who have old equipment lying around may find that they get new life out of the equipment they have. So that's where things are right now. Next time I'll include you with any updates. Things are looking pretty much the same, but pretty much what we are waiting for now is the water cycle to show safe levels. We want to make sure there are no high levels of ammonia or nitrogen, and we'll look at testing the water to learn about that. And then I'll start adding in a couple of pieces of very simple decor that the seahorses will be able to hang on to with their tails. And we'll talk more about why I selected that specific decor when I start adding them in there. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you are enjoying these videos at least a fraction of much as I am. See you next time.